April 2017. A remote field in Alabama. A man stands blindfolded in the dark, his right hand resting on the shoulder of the person in front of him. Around them is an ocean of white robes. This is a Ku Klux Klan induction ceremony. The instructions for the night are simple. If there are any snitches in the group, they get a bullet. To punctuate the rule, 2 gunshots ring out into the night sky. 2 years later, the same man finds himself at a neo-Nazi gathering on Halloween night. The group is attempting a pagan sacrifice, but the executioner's blade is dull. He repeatedly strikes a live goat, failing to break the skin, inciting chaos among the saluting men. Finally, someone pulls a handgun and shoots the animal in the head. They slice the goat's throat, filling a cup with its blood. One by one, the men are instructed to place a hit of LSD under their tongues and wash it down with the fresh blood. When the cup reaches our man, the liquid has already coagulated into thick chunks. Drinking it and tripping with heavily armed extremists would compromise everything. He dips his fingers deep into the cup, pulls them out, and sucks the blood off his own skin. Surviving deep inside America's most violent extremist factions demands a specific set of skills. Courage is a prerequisite, but keeping your cover intact while surrounded by armed, paranoid men requires absolute split-second psychological mastery over pure terror. The man wiping animal blood off his mouth is FBI Special Agent Scott Payne. He does not fit the stereotype of the polished Ivy League federal investigator. Payne is a 6'4", 260-pound powerhouse covered in tattoos, known in the field by nicknames like Big Country. That imposing frame allowed him to operate as a contract killer, a contraband smuggler, and an arms dealer. He successfully infiltrated violent motorcycle gangs, pedophile rings, drug cartels, and militias actively plotting to overthrow society. His success highlights the core reality of undercover tradecraft. You are not putting on a costume or reciting lines from a script. The job is the meticulous psychological art of building authentic relationships with dangerous people for the express purpose of betraying them. To convince monsters that you are one of them, you cannot fabricate a dark side from scratch. Criminals have an instinct for deception. To earn their trust, you have to locate and weaponize the genuine darkness hidden inside your own past. Scott Payne acquired his authentic edge long before he took an oath to the FBI. At age 14, following his parents' divorce, he drifted down a destructive path. He began experimenting with the occult, studying satanic rituals, and attempting to make deals with the devil. The turning point came during a sleepover at a friend's house. After a few drinks, Scott performed a mock demonic possession, thrashing on the couch and laughing in a fabricated demon voice. When he rolled over, he saw a watery reflection in the room. Inside it was a grinning entity with long, crooked fingers beckoning to him. The hallucination was entirely real to him. That moment of profound, paralyzing terror broke his fascination with the occult instantly. He abandoned the rituals and focused his energy on a more conventional path, leaving the dark imagery behind for good. That period of teenage instability left a permanent mark. He carried the lived experience of an outcast, a genuine misfit energy that cannot be taught in a classroom. When violent criminals looked him in the eye decades later, they recognized a man who had actually walked through the dark. When Scott looks a target in the eye, he isn't reciting a script about being a social outcast. He's drawing on a genuine history of instability, a background criminals recognize and trust because it can't be faked. In 2002, Payne brought that raw edge to the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, entering the Bureau's notoriously brutal undercover school. It is a relentless 2-week gauntlet with 0 days off. Instructors heavily utilize severe sleep deprivation to break candidates down and strip away their defenses. Traditional agents often crack under the pressure, becoming delirious and erratic during the high-stress roleplay scenarios. About half the class washes out. Scott, however, fed on the exhaustion. The relentless, grueling pressure felt natural to him. He even managed to hold his own around his idols. Legendary agent Joe Pistone, who spent 6 years undercover in the Mafia as Donnie Brasco, was a guest instructor. While lecturing, Pistone kept inadvertently stepping on Scott's massive boots. Breaking his lesson, Pistone looked down at Scott, tossed a couple of dollars on the desk, and told the giant recruit to go get him a shoe shine. The Academy gave Scott the technical framework to control his naturally abrasive personality, turning his misfit traits into a deliberate tool for intelligence gathering. That training was immediately tested in the field. Scott's first major undercover assignment targeted the Outlaws Motorcycle Club, the primary rivals of the Hells Angels. The syndicate was heavily implicated in drug trafficking, prostitution rings, and extreme violence. The operation almost failed before it began. FBI intelligence indicated the bikers would be out of uniform. When Scott arrived, the gang was fully dressed in their colors. He could no longer rely on his plan to strike up a casual conversation about motorcycles without appearing like an overly eager civilian. Scott abandoned his script. He knew from his briefings that one specific gang member, road named Spanky, demanded to be the center of attention. Scott walked in, started telling loud jokes, and deliberately hijacked the room's energy, triggering Spanky's ego. Annoyed by the competition, Spanky called Scott over to reclaim the spotlight, exactly as Scott had calculated. Within minutes, the target was buying the undercover agent a drink. Rigid plans shatter on contact with reality. Survival in deep cover relies entirely on the ability to instantly discard bad intel, read a target's psychological flaws, and manipulate them in real time. Buying a drink was only the introduction. As Spanky introduced Scott around the bar, the rest of the gang locked onto him. The scrutiny was intense and silent. Scott broke away to use the bathroom. Looking into the glass reflection of a flyer box above the urinal, he watched a massive, heavily muscled biker walk in behind him. The man aggressively checked beneath every stall to ensure they were alone, before stepping right next to Scott and demanding to know why he was in Massachusetts. Expecting a physical assault, Scott smoothly deployed his legend. He leaned into his memorized backstory, explaining he was a biker from deep South Texas, up north for work with a profound appreciation for Harley-Davidsons and whiskey. The delivery was flawless. The biker accepted the story. Scott returned to the main room, where the gang fully embraced him, pouring him drinks and treating him as one of their own. In that moment of acceptance, the crushing psychological paradox of his profession locked into place. He would spend the coming months riding with these men, learning their families and genuinely treating them as brothers, while quietly orchestrating the criminal cases that would ruin their lives. Scott survived because he could reside on the razor-thin line between authentic brotherhood and absolute betrayal. This psychological fluidity would soon lead him even deeper into the American underworld. You are standing in a cramped crawl space. The door is locked. Two armed men are staring at you, and they've just ordered you to take off all your clothes. Your brain triggers an adrenaline dump. The physical stress is so extreme that you actually forget your own middle name. Then comes auditory exclusion. The voices in the room sound like you're underwater, an incredibly slow, heavy whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Your vision distorts next. The physiological trauma causes time dilation. You stop seeing fluid motion and start seeing the world in broken screen grabs. Click, click, click. Stripping in front of two gunmen is embarrassing, but it shouldn't be lethal. The problem is, you're an undercover FBI agent, and your recording equipment isn't taped to your chest. It's woven directly into the clothing you are currently handing over. One of the men picks up a piece of your clothing. He starts running his fingers over the fabric, moving agonizingly slow. He's looking for a wire. He looks directly at the hidden device, and he misses it. You survive. Deep cover operations rely on months of planning and tactical precision, but surviving the psychological meat grinder of a close call often comes down to pure, blind luck. For a year and a half, FBI agent Scott Calloway lived entirely inside that meat grinder. He built a legend as a man named Tex and infiltrated the Outlaws motorcycle gang. He drank with them, rode with them, and fought alongside them. He developed a deep bond with one member in particular, a man named Scott Town. They had daughters the exact same age. They finished each other's sentences. Town became a mirror image, the person Calloway might have been if he hadn't gone into law enforcement. The operation culminated in a massive sting. Calloway brokered a deal where the outlaws would provide armed security for a major drug transfer. The supposed Mexican cartel moving the cocaine and the Canadian buyers paying for it were entirely made up of undercover FBI agents. The trap worked flawlessly. But living a lie takes a severe physical toll. Following the sting, Calloway suffered severe stress-related panic attacks. Medical evaluations labeled him overassigned, and the Bureau ordered him to take a mandatory 6-month timeout from the field. Before the arrests became public, Calloway's phone rang. It was Scott Town. He called purely to check on his friend, ending the conversation with, "I love you, brother." 45 minutes later, a SWAT team breached Town's front door and sent him to prison for 7 years. Operation Roadkill successfully dismantled a criminal network, but achieving that tactical victory meant the undercover agents had to completely destroy the lives of the men they had grown to genuinely love. Following his timeout, Calloway took his outlaw biker credentials and pivoted. He aimed them at the shadows of America's past, targeting legacy white supremacist organizations like the Ku Klux Klan. He assumed infiltrating a secretive hate group would be difficult. Instead, he found a public hotline. He called it, struck up a conversation with a member, and learned they were desperate for an acoustic musician to play at an upcoming rally. Calloway grabbed his guitar. The directions led him to an empty, fenced-in dirt lot in the middle of nowhere. Armed guards dressed in all black, calling themselves Nighthawks, manned the gate. The group was obsessed with rules and hierarchy. They gave Calloway a handbook they called the Clorin. To wear a robe, he first had to pass something called the Kuno test, an acronym standing for character, honor, and duty. At dusk, the actual initiation began. Calloway found himself standing in a field, completely blindfolded. They ordered him to his knees. He placed his hand on the shoulder of the man in front of him and swore an oath to foster the welfare of the white race. They pulled the blindfold off. A man wearing a bright green robe stood over him holding a sword and proceeded to knight him. Calloway walked back to his truck, realizing he had just accidentally joined the Klan. These mystic insignia and strange rituals mask a brutal history. In the late 19th century, this group tortured, lynched, and burned their way through Black communities, earning the distinction of being America's first true domestic terrorist movement. They're still racist to the core, and they still burn crosses, but their numbers have plummeted. The Legacy Klan has shrunk into a bizarre, performative shadow of itself. Today, the real danger has moved elsewhere. On August 11, 2017, a crowd gathered at the University of Virginia to protest the removal of a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The Unite the Right rally drew massive crowds into the downtown parks. Men marched with torches, chanting anti-Semitic slogans, proving that modern white supremacists felt completely comfortable operating in the open. The next day, large groups of counter-protesters arrived. The situation rapidly deteriorated from shouting matches to physical brawls in the streets. The violence reached a fatal peak when a man drove his car directly into a crowd of counter-protesters, injuring 35 people and killing a woman named Heather Heyer. Charlottesville forced law enforcement to confront an evolving threat. Groups like the Base were gaining traction. They followed an ideology called accelerationism, heavily relying on a neo-Nazi text titled Siege. This graphic shows the structural difference. The KKK relies on a rigid, centralized hierarchy. Accelerationists operate in decentralized terror cells. They don't want to hold rallies. They want to trigger total systemic collapse through organized, localized violence. By 2021, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence formally identified these racially motivated extremists as the single most lethal domestic terrorism threat. Calloway spent years targeting criminals who wanted to exploit the system for profit. But as the landscape of American extremism mutated, he found himself hunting terrorists who simply wanted to burn the system to the ground.
There is a violent ideology known as accelerationism. The core belief is that modern society is irredeemable, and the only solution is to speed up its collapse through mass chaos. The real-world result of this thinking is devastating. In 2019, an accelerationist attacked 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, murdering 51 people. We saw the exact same intent in Charleston, South Carolina, when a shooter killed 9 black parishioners during a church service. The explicit purpose of these massacres is to inspire copycats and ignite a race war right here in the United States. That brings us to a neo-Nazi terror network called the Base, founded in 2019. Their doctrine takes accelerationism a step further. They plan to trigger total societal collapse, an event they call the Boogaloo, through coordinated guerrilla warfare. We're talking targeted assassinations, poisoning water systems, and taking down the power grid.
To dismantle a highly decentralized network like this, the FBI relies on deep cover infiltration. Enter Scott Payne, a veteran undercover agent. He's previously infiltrating biker gangs and the Ku Klux Klan. Now his target is the Base. When a group is actively plotting to violently dismantle civil society, you can't wait for them to act. Law enforcement has to get inside and stop them before they strike. Scott's first hurdle is getting noticed. He creates a digital persona on the social network Gab. The typical Base recruit is between 18 and 25. Since Scott is actually 48, he builds a backstory as an aging biker and former skinhead from South Carolina to explain his age and experience. The bait works. He starts communicating over encrypted email with a user named Norman Spear. That's the alias of Ronaldo Nazzaro, the founder of the Base, who is orchestrating this domestic terror network from the safety of St. Petersburg, Russia. After passing the digital tests, Scott is invited to an in-person vetting in Rome, Georgia. The moment he steps out of his truck, the cell leader pulls out a handheld device and begins sweeping his vehicle for electronic bugs. Scott isn't wearing a wire, but his FBI case team secretly planted a tracking device near the back left tire of his truck. As the wand moves closer to the bumper, it starts beeping wildly. The device is picking up the tracker. With his cover seconds away from being blown, Scott points to the nearby power lines and convinces the cell leader they are causing the interference. He uses the distraction to secretly contact his team, demanding they deactivate the tracker immediately. In a world defined by accelerationist paranoia, even a minor technological glitch results in immediate execution. By the time they arrive at a secondary location, the tracker is dead, and Scott passes the test. 2 months later, Scott is invited to a multi-day hate camp on a Georgia farm. Going in, he assumes he'll be doing typical paramilitary training, woodland survival, grappling, and weapons drills. What happens is entirely different. Over 3 days, the group descends into heavy hallucinogenic drug use. They gather around a roaring bonfire to burn American flags and Bibles. Then they sacrifice a stolen goat and drink its blood. This behavior exposes a dark psychological reality. When sober, these men explicitly commit to murdering minorities and anti-fascists.
One former soldier openly acknowledges he'll have to kill his ex-fiancée because she is half black. Another says he'd kill his own father if the cause requires it. These hate camps serve as psychological incubators, designed to permanently strip away a recruit's empathy and replace it with a total commitment to violence. That violence soon shifts from hypothetical to imminent. The Georgia cell leader, going by the alias TMBB, creates a secure chat room to plan a coordinated home invasion assassination of a local couple involved in anti-fascist activism. The plan is methodical. Specific forensic countermeasures to avoid leaving DNA. They prep to tape their pants to their shoes, secure gloves, and smear Vaseline on eyebrows. To prevent leaving trace biological evidence from losing bowel control, TMBB requires every assassin to wear adult diapers. While Scott intercepts the Georgia plot, a simultaneous threat emerges from Baltimore. 3 members are planning to hijack an upcoming Second Amendment rally in Virginia. Their logic is brutally simple. The rally will be packed with armed citizens, militias, and police. The terror cell intends to fire indiscriminately into the crowd. No one will know where the shots are coming from, which could spark a deadly crossfire and provide the exact chaos needed to ignite a race war. The danger has escalated to the level of imminent mass casualty slaughter. With the Virginia rally just weeks away, the FBI must collapse the operation and move in. Taking down a terror cell requires extreme precision. The FBI needs to arrest the heavily armed and deeply paranoid Georgia cell leader, TMBB. If they trigger a shootout, Scott, who is still undercover alongside him, could be killed. Scott orchestrates a brilliant mechanical ruse. While driving TMBB to lunch,
Scott claims he hears a loud grinding noise, convincing the target that his truck's brake calipers have frozen up. He pulls into a pre-planned location and purposefully parks the truck inches from a solid fence. When they both step out to check the tire, TMBB's line of sight to the main road is completely blocked. Another agent drives up, offering help and creating a distraction, while TMBB looks the wrong way. A heavily armored SWAT Bearcat barrels silently over the hill. By the time TMBB realizes what's happening, Scott is safely out of the way, and the arrest is over without a single shot fired. In the end, counterterrorism at this highest level depends on precise psychological manipulation and overwhelming tactical surprise to neutralize threats without bloodshed. The coordinated FBI raids successfully dismantle the base's most active terror cells. The key members are handed heavy prison sentences, up to 13 years behind bars. Scott Payne finally retires with full honors, capping off a remarkable career. But there is a chilling caveat to this victory. Ronaldo Nazário, the founder of the group, remains perfectly untouched in Russia. And today, this decentralized network is already experiencing a resurgence. Brilliant undercover operations can amputate the physical limbs of a terror group, stopping immediate bloodshed. But the ideological ghost of accelerationism cannot be locked in a cell. It simply waits online, searching for its next recruit.